almost scrolled past this, and that tiny hesitation, that micro-pause between thumb and decision is exactly why you're here. If this finds you, your awakening is no longer optional. I know how that sounds. Dramatic, urgent, maybe a little unsettling. Hear me before you panic. This is not a threat. It's a recognition. There is a window open right now in which something changes inside you, not because you finally did the right ritual or read the right book, but because your field of experience has gathered enough information to demand a new kind of intelligence. If you have been chasing synchronicities that vanish when you try to hold them, if you've had moments of clear seeing that dissolve into second guessing, if manifestation feels like a fragile trick that sometimes works and more often does not, this message is for you. You are not failing. You have been collecting data. Think of all the methods you've tried. Visualization scripts, morning routines, gratitude lists, rituals, affirmations, manifestation boards, daily habits. Some worked, then they didn't. You felt progress and then a strange relapse. You switched coaches, doubled down on discipline, then surrendered and watched your life still resist. That pattern, the oscillation between dogged effort and exhausted letting go, is the signal, not the verdict. It tells us something essential about how your attention and intention are organized. There is a mechanism here, and once you see it, you can work with it. Before I go further, if this resonates, subscribe to this channel. I'm building a short series that will give you the specific, repeatable protocols you can use to move between these states on purpose. Hit subscribe and the bell so you won't miss the drills coming next. Here's the heart of what Moose teachings leave out. Your consciousness moves between two fundamentally different operating modes. I borrow language from physics as a metaphor because it maps so cleanly onto felt experience. One mode behaves like a particle, discrete, local, task-focused. The other behaves like a wave, extended, open, generative. Call them the doer and the field. Call them the spark and the ocean. Either way, they are complementary, not moral opposites. The problem isn't that one is good and the other bad. The problem is that most of us treat them as if a permanent preference for one will solve everything. It doesn't. Between these two modes, there is a middle process that determines whether your intention will coherently produce change or collapse into noise. I call that process coherence, and its opposite, decoherence. Coherence is a state of internal alignment, where attention, belief, emotion, and action are tuned. Decoherence is what happens when parts of you are pulling different directions. Belief says yes, action sends mixed signals. Fear whispers sabotage, and attention fragments. Decoherence dissolves possibility. Coherence concentrates it.
This is not metaphysical magic or a scientific claim about particles rearranging matter. It's a practical model for why your practices sometimes behave like a precision instrument and sometimes like a blinking, uncalibrated device. Let me tell you a short story. A few years back, I lived in a tiny apartment with a leaking ceiling and a job that felt like a slow grind. I had been disciplined with spiritual practices for months, meditations, breathwork, a laser focus on intent. I was efficient, organized, and determined. Then something broke. My relationship frayed, my income dropped, and the systems I'd built collapsed under stress. I doubled down. I visualized harder, added more rituals, and told myself it was just timing. But the harder I tried, the more my life resisted. Synchronicities that had happened effortlessly felt like they were hiding. Coincidences evaporated when I looked. One night, exhausted, I stopped trying. Not because I gave up, but because trying had become its own interference. I sat down at the window and simply noticed everything. The temperature of the air, the low hum of the street, the sensation of the chair under my thighs, my breath. I didn't summon anything. I didn't recite affirmations. I didn't rehearse outcomes. I acknowledged the fear and the ambition with the same kind curiosity. In that simple unclenching, something shifted. Opportunities that had been invisible appeared in a week. A collaboration fell into place that I had not engineered. Doors I had been banging on quietly opened. Not because I became passive and lucky, but because my interior stopped sabotaging itself. My field aligned, and my actions became extensions of that alignment. That moment was an accidental experiment in coherence. It taught me 3 things I want to give to you now. First, effort alone can create decoherence. Second, surrender alone without clarity can drift. Third, coherence is a discipline you can cultivate, a skill as trainable as any habit. To make this practical, I created a map I call the 7 Souls. It's not a mystical ladder to rank people. It's a practical diagnostic instrument. 7 archetypal modes of being that live inside you and show up in your life. Each soul is an operating tone of consciousness, a way you show up and a pattern you repeat. Each has a clear signal you can learn to feel, and each has a tiny practice you can use to shift it or use it skillfully. When you know which soul is dominant in a moment, you can choose the mechanism that will deliver the results you want. Act with the doer when action is needed. Relax into the surrenderer when opening is needed. Pivot into the integrator when both are required. Let's introduce them as a map, and then we'll begin to explore the first ones in depth. The names are deliberately simple and operational: the seeker, the doer, the surrenderer, the visionary, the integrator, the witness, the coherent.
I'll describe each in a sentence, then show you how to recognize it and give you a micro practice to use right away. Today, we'll work through the first 4 and the practical skill you can use tonight to notice your state. The remaining 3 will be the focus of the next session, where we'll build step-by-step protocols for shifting reliably. For now, lean into learning to notice. Notice, don't force. First soul, the seeker. The seeker is restless. This is the part of you that is always learning, always collecting techniques, always trying to fix reality by acquiring more practices. Its signal is chronic trying and exhaustion. If you find yourself creating ever more elaborate rituals, switching programs as soon as one shows friction, or feeling that constant itch of not enough yet, you are likely in seeker mode. The seeker's strength is curiosity and refinement. Its weakness is that refinement can become resistance when it refuses to rest in any outcome long enough for coherence to develop. Micropractice. Pause and name the trying. Say silently, "I see you, seeker." Then notice one concrete thing you have done today that aligned with your value, and leave it at that. No corrections, no backup plans, just acknowledgement and single item completion. This interrupts the pattern of collecting without integration. Second soul, the doer. The doer is the particle mode virtuoso. It is the engine of implementation, calendars, calls, steps, contracts. Its signal is a clear task orientation. You feel focused on outcomes and on the next right move. The doer is not the enemy of spirituality, it is its necessary partner. Problems arise when the doer is overused, when action is disconnected from felt sense, when it becomes a frantic firefight against the world rather than a thoughtful alignment. Micropractice. Pick one small, measurable action that directly corresponds to your intention, and commit to it. Not a vague plan, a single specific next step you will complete within a set time. The doer thrives on specificity. Third soul, the surrenderer. The surrenderer is wave mode allowing. It is open, receptive, and spacious. Its signal is a sense of ease, synchronicities that feel like gentle currents carrying you. When you are in surrenderer mode, ideas arise almost like gifts. Requirements seem to find you rather than the reverse. This soul is not passivity. It is trust embodied with clarity. Its pitfall is vague wishfulness mistaken for surrender. Micropractice. Remove one active attempt to force an outcome for the remainder of your day. Replace it with a question you mean. What next step serves this intention? And then listen for the felt response. If nothing obvious arrives, act from the doer for a single focused move and then return to noticing. Fourth soul, the visionary. The visionary is the generative wave. It produces novel possibilities and unforeseen ideas.
Its signal is inspiration without strain, sudden clarity, images or solutions emerging fully formed. The visionary can plant a seed that needs the doer's attention to grow. Its danger is celestial drifting, generating without grounding. Micropractice. Capture the vision immediately. Write it, record it, draw it, and then schedule one micro-action with the doer to test it. Treat the visionary's output like a delicate message. Honor it by making one practical appointment with reality. These first 4 souls are the motions most people oscillate between: seeker, doer, surrenderer, visionary. Each is valuable. The friction many of you describe is created when these modes are uncoordinated, when the visionary's burst is smothered by the seeker's constant retooling, or when the doer acts too quickly and collapses a wave that needed time to form. Decoherence is an interior contradiction. Belief pulls one way, desire another, action another. The consequence is noise. The pathway through is simple sounding but subtle to implement. Notice, name, and then apply the corrective micropractice for the dominant soul. This is the core reflex I teach. Recognize before you respond. Let me give you a clearer sense of the signals you can use to map your field. These are not abstract. They are bodily, emotional, and behavioral indicators. Learn them as if you were learning the dashboard lights on a car. Signal 1, the exhausted hustle. You're building systems to force outcomes, and you feel perpetually drained. This is seeker-doer imbalance.
Signal 2, the vanishing synchronicity. Meaningful coincidences appear when you stop trying, but the moment you attempt to hold them, they scatter. This is classic decoherence, a premature collapse of the wave. Signal 3, the fading awakening. You have epiphanies, and months later they feel thin or irrelevant. That thinness is often caused by the failure to integrate the insight with consistent, small, aligned action. Signal 4, the false surrender. You tell yourself you've let go, but inside there's a tightness of expectation. This is a counterfeit surrender. It looks like openness, but it's a posture of passive hope. Signal 5, the misapplied intensity. You push with single-minded focus, but on an intention that doesn't match your deeper values. The doer is doing its job, but the target is misaligned. When you see these signals, they tell you exactly which soul is out of sync and which micro-practice to call. That is the practical value of the 7 souls. A fast, felt sense diagnosis, and a simple intervention. Now I want to give you a micro-practice you can use right now to begin building recognition, the core competence that makes the rest possible. You do not need to change your life in this moment. You only need to notice where attention is gathered. Settle your posture in whatever way feels natural. Soften your face and allow your shoulders to ease.
Bring awareness to your breath, not to change it, simply to sense it. Notice whether your attention is leaning toward a project, an emotion, a memory, a worry, or a possibility. Label it quietly. Seeker, if there's that itch for more methods and learning. Doer, if action plans dominate. Surrenderer, if there is an open ease. Visionary, if vivid images or possibilities are arising. If more than one label fits, name the 2 most present and notice which one feels louder. Do not judge. The point is recognition. This practice is deceptively small and radically powerful because recognition dissipates unconscious momentum. When a part of you is driving on autopilot, it accumulates energy and creates decoherence by staying hidden. Naming it shifts energy. It does not fix everything, but it reveals the structure of the problem. Over time, this simple noticing begins to rewire the reflex. You stop reacting and start selecting. Here's a concrete example I see with seekers all the time. Someone writes an intention, I want a reliable income from creative work. They immediately go into seeker mode, reading webinars, enrolling in courses, collecting strategies. Meanwhile, the doer is active too, sending cold emails, making offers that are not aligned, or trying to force sales from the wrong audience. The visionary is flickering with ideas that never get captured. The surrenderer shows up only when exhaustion forces it. The result is scattered energy and intermittent results. Now imagine if, before the next action, this person paused and performed the recognition practice. I am in seeker and doer. With that naming, they might choose one micro-action, a single targeted email to a real contact, crafted with a visionary's creative hook and scheduled as an experiment. They might pair that with a surrenderer's promise to wait 3 days for the field to respond before adjusting. That's coherence, aligning intention, action, and felt sense. There is a subtle posture I want to correct right now because it's common and it feeds decoherence. Many people hear surrender and imagine becoming passive or abandoning responsibility. That is not what I mean. Surrender is not apathy. It is informed receptivity. It is choosing to stop fighting your own field so you can work with it. Equally, action is not suppression of spirit. It is honoring the insight with disciplined movement. The work is to coordinate the two. At this point, you might be wondering, where do the last 3 souls fit into this map? The integrator, the witness, the coherent. Those are the ones that hold the system steady. The integrator is the skillful manager that says, this moment needs both a micro-action and a wait. The witness is the meta-awareness that watches the waves without getting swept away. The coherent is the embodied alignment, where the inner landscape and outer action are singing the same note. We will unpack each of them in detail with protocols you can practice.
For now, begin with noticing. The other pieces will make sense faster once recognition becomes second nature. I want to be clear about something crucial. This is not a promise of instant abundance or miraculous fix. Coherence increases the probability that your intentions will find a clear pathway into reality, but it does not guarantee outcomes. There are complexities beyond our individual field: timing, other people's agency, systemic constraints.
What coherence does is reduce internal friction and create a higher signal-to-noise ratio in your life so that intelligent moves land more often and more speedily. That is a practical, humane goal. There is also a collective dimension. Each person who cultivates coherence contributes to a larger field that interacts with others. Think of it like tuning an instrument within an orchestra. One well-tuned instrument raises the harmonic potential of the whole. This is not mystical wishful thinking. It's a pragmatic observation about influence. Coherent people are easier to coordinate with, more reliable in partnership, and they model ways of being that spread. If enough individuals refine their field, social systems may become more responsive and less reactive. The stakes are not only personal, they are communal. That's part of why the tone of urgency exists in this title. The world is registering small increases in coherence, and that creates windows of possibility. If this finds you, you're being invited to contribute, not because you're special, but because your skill matters. By now, you've met the first 4 souls and learned the basic reflex. Notice, name, apply the micro-practice. Choose one element and try it tonight. Don't overhaul your schedule. Pick a tiny action or a single noticing practice and make it non-negotiable for one evening. The scale you choose is less important than the fidelity of practice. Small, repeated alignments compound. Before I leave this section, I want to address a pattern that trips many of us: the temptation to dramatize progress. We want to tell a story of a sudden awakening because that story is clean and heroic. Real work is less cinematic. It is a series of small corrections, honest admissions, and slightly different choices made over time. That is what coherence trains. Slight inflections in attention that redirect months of momentum. When you understand this, the urgency in the title becomes a kindly insistence, not a panic. It says, if this finds you, the conditions for reliable transformation are gathering. You do not need to become someone else overnight. You need to learn a new coordination. There is a practical hazard to watch for: over-mechanizing the practice. Some students will take this map and attempt to treat each soul like a checkbox. I am in Seeker, now I will box it. That misses the point. The 7 souls are living tones, not categories on a to-do list. The skill is fluidity, to move between them with grace.
The work is to become an intelligent steward of your field, not to force a permanent state called coherent and exile the rest. So tonight, practice recognition. Name which soul feels dominant. Use the micro-practice that corresponds. If you are uncertain, default to the witness practice. Breathe, name, and observe without judgment. Witnessing is the simplest and most reliable first step. It does not produce immediate miracles. It produces clarity, and clarity is an amplifier. I want to leave you with one practical checkpoint you can use to measure progress over the coming week. Designate a daily 60-second log in which you write 3 words: dominant soul, 1 micro-action, felt outcome. Do not elaborate. Keep it terse. Over a week, you will see patterns. The log is not a test. It's a mirror. Now, before we move into the next phase of this map, I have to tell you something that will connect this to the urgency in the title. When enough people in a network become coherent, the kinds of opportunities that used to be rare begin to show up more often. Collaborations that previously would have required luck start to arrive through ordinary social channels. Creative projects find alignment partners. Systems that once resisted begin to yield. This is not some cosmic favor. It's the predictable effect of reduced noise and increased signal. If this finds you, your awakening is no longer optional because the environment you are part of is shifting. It asks you to either adapt or risk being pulled by the old reactive patterns. That phrasing is strong because the choice it frames is meaningful. Continue operating on scattered momentum or learn to steer with intentional coherence. The consequences are practical: better relationships, clearer work, less exhaustion. We are now at the edge of the part of the map that holds the integrative work: the witness, the integrator, and the coherent. In the next phase, I will give you the protocols that let you move deliberately between these states on demand. Drills for arresting decoherence in the moment, methods to calibrate felt sense so you can measure coherence, and a reproducible sequence to stabilize field shifts so that the spinning of awakening becomes a steady hum instead of an intermittent flash. I will also walk through the remaining 3 souls with the same clarity and micro-practices we used for the first 4. But before I send you off to practice, do one thing for me. Write in the comments, "I recognize the 7 souls," if you've read this far and you feel the small recognition in your body.
If you leave that line, you are making a tiny public commitment, a strong psychological nudge, and it helps your field. Subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss the drills that make this reliable. For now, close your eyes for a moment and scan the room. Where is your attention? If you hear a voice in your head telling you should be doing something else, name it. Seeker.
If your muscles are tight with plans, name it doer. If your chest opens and ideas feel like arrivals, name it visionary. If you feel a soft, spacious ease, name it surrenderer. Notice the quality of the naming. This small learning is the hinge. We are only beginning the map. There is a deeper architecture I want to show you. How to measure coherence as a felt sense, how to remove specific decoherence behaviors that hide behind habits like overplanning or passive waiting, and how to train the nervous system to hold higher bandwidth states so that the field of possibility is easier to operate in. In the next section, I'll give you step-by-step drills, quick, repeatable protocols that will let you move from accidental coherence to reliable coherence. Those drills will be simple to practice and powerful to integrate. When you learn them, your life will not magically transform overnight, but the odds will change. You will begin to notice less failure as fate and more feedback as instruction. Keep the noticing practice as your first line tool tonight. Name the dominant soul. Use the micro practice. Make one small, measurable action tomorrow, and then allow the field to respond. Become curious about the results instead of invested in a particular outcome. That orientation, curiosity over attachment, is one of the most practical coherence techniques there is. If this finds you, remember, your awakening is not a checkpoint to be reached and left behind. It's a skill to be cultivated. The world around you is changing in ways that make that skill useful and in demand. The way forward is not more frantic trying, nor passive waiting, but the steady, compassionate work of learning your inner weather. Start with the simple habit of naming one soul each day. I'll meet you on the other side of that habit with protocols for shifting on purpose. Write, "I recognize the 7 souls" below if this landed. Subscribe to stay on the path. In the next video, we'll unpack the integrator, the witness, and the coherent. And I'll give you the first of the shift drills that you can use instantly to stop decoherence and pull your field back into alignment. 5th soul, the integrator. This is the hand at the helm that knows when to steer and when to release the wheel. The integrator is not cleverness. It is the practical intelligence that reads the field and chooses the rhythm of response. Its signal is the soft, decisive pause that comes between feeling and action, a quick internal check that asks, what coordination will reduce friction here? When the integrator is absent, good impulses turn into conflicting behaviors. A visionary idea is launched without a plan, or a brave step is undone by private second-guessing. When the integrator is present, your inner parts speak to each other, and you act from a unified intention. Micro-practice, the 3-question check. When you notice friction or uncertainty, slow long enough to ask 3 simple questions, out loud or mentally. What do I intend here? What is one concrete next step? How will I know if this step is in service of the intention? Answer each briefly. If your answers disagree, for example, your intention is to create ease, but your next step is to overwork, allow the discrepancy to be visible. Then choose a single corrective act, a smaller step, a boundary, a message to a collaborator, a postponement. The integrator's job is to reduce internal contradiction by translating values into appropriately sized actions. Practical example, imagine you're launching a project and you feel 2 pulls, an excitement to create, visionary, and a compulsion to research another 47 tactics, seeker. Pause. Use the 3-question check. Your intention may be deliver a first draft this month. The one concrete next step could be write for 30 minutes tonight and send a first draft to one trusted reader. Your measure of success is simply whether the draft exists in 8 days. That tiny alignment between intention, action, and measure is the integrator's medicine. The integrator also keeps an eye on timing. Coherence is not a demand that every impulse become action immediately. It is a timing discipline that asks, when is this impulse ripe for execution, and when should it be allowed to incubate? Integrator practice can be as simple as instituting a small holding period for big impulses, a 24 to 72 hour rule where you capture the idea and wait before committing resources. That wait period often resolves half of the inner conflict and prevents premature decoherence. Sixth soul, the witness. The witness is often misunderstood as aloof detachment. It is not. It is compassionate, steady presence. The witness watches the traffic of thoughts, feelings, and impulses without automatic identification. Its signal is an inner spaciousness where you can hear a thought without being driven by it. When the witness is active, you can observe irritation as a sensation in the throat or tightness in the jaw, and you can respond to that sensation rather than to the story that usually drives it. Micro-practice, the 60-second witness scan. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Take 3 long, calm breaths, and then scan the body from head to toe. Notice 3 sensations without the need to fix them. Label them simply tightness, heat, softness. When the mind produces a story, label it planning, worry, memory. Keep the labeling gentle. The purpose is not to eradicate content, but to create a relationship with it. That relationship weakens compulsive reactions and strengthens choice. A second witness practice is conversational. When you notice a charged reaction in conversation, defensiveness, urgency, anxiety, name the sensation internally and slow your speech by 1 breath.
This tiny pause creates a space in which the integrator can be consulted, and it prevents you from acting on habit. Witnessing neither rejects emotion nor clings to it. It allows feeling to move while the rest of you stays steady. Seventh soul, the coherent. This is not a superior identity. It is a functional state, wholeness of inner alignment, and a felt sense of resonance between intention and action. The coherent state is marked by clarity, ease, and a forward-moving momentum that does not feel frantic. Its signal is a bodily signature. Chest open, breath full but unhurried, a sense of rightness that is not grandiosity but practicality. Coherence is the sound of several instruments finely tuned to the same note. Micro-practice, the alignment sweep. When you sense a small groove of flow, the coherent moment, honor it by doing 2 things. First, note it. This is coherence. Second, lock in 1 small action that follows the felt sense. Example. You are composing a piece of work and feel a precise creative rhythm. Note the coherence, set a timer for 25 minutes of focused work, a single doer move, and then rest into a surrenderer posture for 10 minutes afterward. This alternation stabilizes the field so the coherence is not a one-off but a repeatable pattern. Now, how do these last 3 souls actually function as a field-stabilizing architecture? Think of the integrator as the conductor who reads the score, the witness as the acoustician who listens for discord, and the coherent as the ensemble when everyone is attuned. The work of mature practice is to cultivate those 3 capacities so that the first 4 souls, seeker, doer, surrenderer, visionary, can show up without creating noise. Integration is an ongoing skill, not a finish line. The reproducible sequence to arrest decoherence. This is the protocol you use when your field feels scattered and you want an immediate, reliable reset. I give this to students as a 7-step emergency sequence because when confusion is high, you need a compact tool. 1. Stop. Literally pause what you are doing for 1 full breath. That pause cuts the habitual loop. 2. Breathe. Take 3 slow breaths into the abdomen to regulate the nervous system. This is not a long meditation. It is a practical reset. 3. Name the soul. Use 1 word: seeker, doer, surrenderer, visionary, integrator, witness, or coherent. Naming reduces unconscious charge. 4. Check primary feeling. Where is your energy? Fear, excitement, exhaustion. Find the dominant tone and rate it 1 to 10 for intensity. 5. Apply the micro-practice associated with the name soul. If seeker, pause and acknowledge a single completion. If doer, pick 1 specific task. If surrenderer, ask a heartfelt question and wait. If visionary, capture the idea. If integrator, ask the 3-question check. If witness, do the 60-second scan. If coherent, lock in a short action and a rest. 6. Take a 1-step corrective action that is tiny and measurable.
Not a grand plan, a single move that is aligned with the intention. Wait for a short window. Give the field 24 to 72 hours to respond before you escalate further. If the corrective action elicits data, adapt. If nothing happens, repeat the sequence with curiosity rather than frustration. This routine is intentionally short because complexity fails under stress. The goal is to create a reliable reflex: detection, naming, aligned microaction, and patient observation. Over time, this sequence trains the nervous system so that arresting decoherence becomes automatic. How to measure coherence as a felt sense, calibration, and metrics. One practical skill that separates talk from traction is the ability to measure your own field. This is not about rating mood. It's about developing a simple, repeatable scale that correlates felt sense with functional outcomes. Here's a 3-part metric I recommend. Use it twice daily, morning and evening, for 2 weeks, and note the correlation to results. Metric A, resonance, scale 1 to 10. How much your body feels in tune with the intention. Low resonance is scattered sensation. High resonance is a sense of rightness that includes slight energization without overwhelm. Metric B, clarity, scale 1 to 10. How certain you are about the next appropriate step. Low clarity means fuzzy options. High clarity means you can name one small action you can take. Metric C, responsibility, scale 1 to 10. This is your confidence that the next step will be enacted with follow-through. It measures the trust you have in your capacity to complete the chosen move. Record for each entry the dominant soul you noticed, the single micro-action you took, and the external sign you watched for. Email sent, page written, conversation scheduled. After a week, look for patterns. Are high resonance mornings correlated with more successful execution? Is a certain soul often present before a breakthrough? These simple correlations will teach you faster than any theory. A practical weekly plan to train coherence. Transformation happens in small, repeated loops. Here is a realistic 30-day plan that compiles the micro-practices into a sustained practice that does not require huge time commitments. Week 1, recognition. Commit to the 60-second naming practice twice a day and keep the 60-second log. Dominant soul, 1 micro-action, felt outcome. This builds the recognition reflex. Week 2, responsibility. Add the 7-step emergency sequence whenever you feel scattered. Continue the log and note how often you use the sequence and what shifted. Week 3, integration. Focus on applying the 3-question check to at least one real decision per day. Keep the log and record whether the decision felt easier afterward. Week 4, stabilization. Practice the alignment sweep twice a week and design a simple ritual that signals coherence time. This could be a specific playlist, a lighting change, a 10-minute walk, or a breathing pattern.
Continue all elements and compare your metrics at the end of the month. The cumulative reward is not a grand transformation, but a reliably higher baseline of signal. Your field becomes easier to operate in. Your small logs create a mirror that helps you pivot before friction becomes crisis. Coherence hacks, the stop creating decoherence checklist. Some behaviors are predictable generators of decoherence. Stop doing the following when you are in active intention mode, unless you have integrated them with an explicit pause. Scattered multitasking. It fragments attention and invites competing narratives. Choose single focus blocks. Over-research. When learning becomes a procrastination pattern, set a research boundary, 90 minutes max, then 1 experiment. Emotional avoidance. If you avoid feelings by busying the doer, schedule a witness practice instead. Public performance as a substitute for private integration. Seeking external validation before interior alignment invites decoherence. Overcommitting on the basis of fear. Before saying yes, run the 3-question check. Replace those behaviors with antidotes: time-boxed work, quick experiments, witness scans, private integration sessions, and a 2-breath delay before committing. Nervous system tools that support coherence. Coherence is not just a cognitive pattern, it depends on nervous system regulation. Here are practical, secular tools you can use in less than 2 minutes. 1. Coherent breath. Inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6 counts for 3 cycles. Longer exhale signals safety to the vagus nerve and reduces reactivity. 2. Micro-movement reset. Stand, feel your feet, shift weight left-right, and open the chest. Movement signals to the body that it is present and reduces mental rumination. 3. Object anchoring. Hold a small object, a stone, a coin, and touch it consciously while naming a soul. The tactile anchor links felt sense to habit and makes retrieval easier over time. 4. Sensory switch. Look at something green for 20 seconds or listen to a tone you associate with calm. Sensory cues break looped patterns and create windows for the integrator. Use these tools before applying the 7-step sequence when intensity is high. They reduce noise so naming and micro-action have clarity. Shifting drills, skills for moving between specific souls. Here are a few targeted drills you can use when you know the pattern you want to move from and to. From seeker to surrenderer, the capture and release. Capture the impulse, write down 3 items you want to explore. Set a 24-hour rule. No action on those items until tomorrow. Spend 5 minutes doing a witness scan to feel the itch, then consciously choose one small non-related act that grounds you. Step outside, make a tea, and return to work. The gap allows the wave to form without being suffocated by new methods. From visionary to doer, the immediate prototype. When a vision arrives, set a timer for 10 minutes and create the smallest possible prototype. It may be a rough outline, a sketch, a cold email draft. The goal is not perfection, but proof that the idea interacts with reality. After the 10 minutes, schedule a block for a follow-up in 48 hours. From doer to witness, the post-action pause. After completing a task, resist the urge to jump to the next. Take 60 seconds to scan the body and label the dominant sensation. This creates feedback loops that reduce burnout and reveal whether action was aligned. From surrenderer to integrator, the commitment bridge. If you're in a spacious openness but fear drifting, choose one small alignment. Schedule a time-limited test that respects the surrender quality, e.g. offer a low-stakes pilot and allow it to respond without overmanaging. That preserves receptivity while also providing necessary measurement. Practical examples across life domains. Because you asked how this applies beyond theory, here are 3 short vignettes that show the map in everyday life, without miracles, only disciplined coordination. A creative freelancer. They often oscillate between over-researching client work, seeker, and despair, false surrenderer. A practical application, morning recognition practice. Capture visionary ideas in voice memos. Use a doer-bound 25-minute focused block to produce one deliverable, then end with a witness cooldown. Over a week, their output increases and their anxiety drops because friction is addressed at its source. A founder in a high-stakes startup. They live in doer mode. The integrator helps by inserting 2 habits, a daily 90-second team alignment check, and a 48-hour incubation rule before major pivots. The witness practice prevents reactive decisions during funding noise. This doesn't guarantee success, but it reduces costly missteps and improves team coordination. A person in a difficult relationship. They experience heat and reactivity. The witness practice returns them to a less reactive posture. The integrator helps them choose one small boundary or clarifying question to test the water. Coherence here shows up as clearer communication and fewer escalations. Collective coherence and ethical considerations. When I say that individual coherence builds a larger field, I want to be practical about what that means and what it does not. It does not mean you become a spiritual separatist who knows better than others. It means you become someone whose attention is less scattered, whose commitments are more reliable, and whose presence makes cooperative work easier. In teams, coherence shows up as fewer miscommunications, more punctual follow-through, and an ability to sustain creative weather. A word on ethics: cultivating coherence increases influence. Influence must be used responsibly. Do not use these tools to manipulate or bypass consent.
Coherence should serve mutual flourishing, clearer intentions, honest communication, and respect for other people's autonomy. If you are in positions of power, apply the integrator to check for conflicts of interest and use witnessing to prevent the seduction of control. Addressing common resistance and skepticism. Some of you will read this with a skeptical eyebrow raised, worried this is another soft promise spiritual quick fix. That skepticism is healthy. Treat these practices like experiments. Test them for a month with the metrics I suggested. If you see no correlation between your felt coherence and the outcomes you value, refine the practices rather than double down on dogma. Others will fear that surrender equals passivity. Remember, surrender here is disciplined receptivity. It is an active skill that requires boundaries, wit, and tests. Finally, some will worry that this system leads to spiritual judgment. The map is a tool, not a hierarchy. There is no moral ranking of souls. Each has a function and dignity. How to integrate this work into a busy life? You do not need hours. The most sustainable practices are micro-sized and context-aware. Conceive of coherence training as hygiene rather than a hobby. Practice recognition moments, 60 seconds, emergency sequence, under 3 minutes, and a 5-minute evening log. Over weeks, these tiny habits stack. If you have a day job, choose one pocket in your schedule: the commute, the first 15 minutes at your desk, the pause before lunch, to anchor your practice. A simple, reproducible daily routine I recommend for busy people. Upon waking, do a 60-second naming practice and 1-breath coherence. In the middle of the workday, use the 7-step emergency sequence whenever you notice friction. In the evening, fill out the 60-second log and then do 1 alignment sweep before bed. That's 3 to 7 minutes of deliberate work scattered across the day, but it compounds profoundly. A note on the language of quantum and metaphor. Throughout this series, I have used language like particle wave and coherence-decoherence as conceptual scaffolding to describe phenomenological patterns. That vocabulary is powerful because it maps nicely onto experience differences.
discrete focused action, and spacious generative field. But remember, the use of quantum terms here is metaphorical, not a scientific claim that consciousness literally rearranges physical particles in a way that guarantees outcomes. This framework is an operational model that helps you identify and remove internal contradictions, so your life behaves with more consistency. Safety and responsible use. Do not apply these practices as substitutes for professional advice where that is required. If you are managing medical or psychological conditions, use coherence tools as adjuncts to professional care, not replacements. If you are in a situation where acting could put you or others at risk, consult appropriate professionals before making changes.
The map helps navigation. It does not replace domain expertise. What to expect in the next videos? You will get protocols that are explicitly procedural, a set of shift drills you can apply in 5 minutes, a method to calibrate coherence before public talks or negotiations, a ritual to stabilize creative bursts into repeatable workflows, and a set of interpersonal exercises to build coherence across teams or couples. Each protocol will include a short script you can follow, metrics to monitor, and a suggested timeline for practice so you can test reliably. Before we close, a practical exercise to anchor today's lesson. Do this now in whatever posture you are in. Take one breath and ask, which soul feels most present? Name it. Now ask, what is one small action that would honor my intention and be completed within the next hour? Commit to that single micro-action. After you complete it, take 30 seconds to note the feeling in the body. That small loop, notice, align, act, observe, is the core of coherent practice. It is not dramatic, it is repeatable. One last thought about the phrase that brought you here. If this finds you, your awakening is no longer optional. Read it as an invitation rather than a verdict. There is a window, right now, where your life data has accumulated enough events and frictions that practicing coherence will yield clearer information and more useful returns. That does not make you special in a grander sense. It simply places you at a practical inflection point. Use it kindly on yourself. If this message landed for you, do something small that creates social commitment. Write in the comments the phrase, "I recognize the 7 souls." That single line is a modest public anchor that nudges habit formation. It also lets me know how many of you are ready for the next level of drills. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video, where I'll give the first set of shift protocols, step-by-step drills to stabilize your field on demand. Go practice the naming. Make one small, measurable action today. Keep your evening log for a week. Be curious about results, not defeated by setbacks. Learning to steer your interior field is a skill, not a miracle, but practiced well, it changes the odds in deeply practical ways. If this finds you, your awakening is no longer optional. It is an emergent competence you can cultivate with patience, small tests, and steady recognition. I'll meet you in the next video with the drills. Until then, notice, name, and practice one small alignment. Write, "I recognize the 7 souls" below if this landed. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next session.